Welcome to the Peer Effect Postbag. I'm James Johnson, joined by Freddie Birley. We asked for your questions, and Freddie and I are going to tackle them together. These aren't theoretical case studies, it's the stuff that's keeping you up at 2 a.m. Let's get answering. So, welcome to the Peer Effect Postbag. I'm James Johnson.
I'm Freddie Birley.
So, Freddie, what have you been up to this week?
So this week is week one of a cleanse. I'm doing this. I actually did it last year and it was amazing. I'd never done a cleanse before, and it's 3 weeks, and it's basically you cut out all inflammatory foods. So it's anything fun. No coffee, no alcohol, no sugar, no gluten, no dairy. And you have liquid breakfast and dinner, which basically takes the pressure off your digestive system so that your body can just focus on healing effectively and cleansing toxins out. And at the end of the last 3 weeks, I did it last January, I felt so alive and my body felt so energized, and like it was working incredibly efficiently. So it's a bit brutal the first week because you're really tired. Because just all your fun stuff. And I miss the ritual of coffee, honestly. I miss coffee. That was the only thing as well last year, that every single day I missed coffee. Everything else I was like, I'll have it in 3 weeks. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing this week. So it's a big commitment.
So
I'm in.
Are you in the, so this is the week one?
This is week one.
So this is not the fun week.
This is hell. We are presently in. I'm really low energy, and I'm feeling sad.
And if someone walked past here with a coffee, you'd probably mug them.
Honestly, the amount of different the amount of different strategies. But maybe I could have a coffee if, and I'm like, no, Freddie, focus, no coffee. There can be no ambiguity in it, otherwise it just snowballs.
But I don't believe that having no ambiguity is actually quite helpful.
Freeing, yeah, it is, because there's no wiggle room. It's an absolute no.
Yeah. That's the thing I found about when I stopped drinking. It going from like I'm not drinking now to I just don't drink.
Yeah.
Just removes so much of those societal pressure. Like, oh, why are you not having a drink with me now? It's like, why I just don't. Like, so.
True. And the decision making.
Like every day going, is this a super occasion?
Yeah.
Is this a special occasion? Is this not a special occasion?
Yes. So fair. So yeah, next 3 weeks, no fun food, but I'll be feeling amazing. I'll be feeling amazing.
So sort of in two episodes time, you're going to be sort of just buzzing.
Yeah, I'll be glowing. I'll be buzzing. I'll be running around. My body will be happy with me.
Maybe I should do it next year. It feels like
I'll send you the book. The book's incredible. It's called Clean, and it's like the research is amazing and the results are completely extraordinary. Would seriously recommend.
Okay, so question for you. This is from Dan. He said, "What do I do if I feel like I can't trust my co-founder?"
This is a tough one, honestly, and often when people ask that question, it's not the first time they're having that thought. So there'll be a series of things that have happened that mean they're now kind of coming to this conclusion. Ultimately, what's going on, I think it's important to think about it and frame it as a question. Not trusting. Trust is two components. It's A, do you have my back? That more emotional, do I feel like they are supporting me and have my back and they're loyal to me? And the second piece is, what can I consistently count on you to do? So do you follow through with what you say you're going to do at the standard and in the timeline I expect you to? And so the first piece is really unpicking, what is it, where is there a gap between your expectations and the reality? So where do you feel like they don't have your back, or what do you not feel you can consistently count on them to do that is, that you're projecting as an expectation? So that can be just a really helpful unpicking.
Really helpful.
And then to discuss that as co-founders, if you can really, what do I expect from you as a co-founder? What do I expect from you in your function? So your actual contribution at a company level. And what do I expect from you whether you describe them as a friend or as a human, as another person that exists outside of co-founder expectations, function expectations, just human expectations. And often we don't have those kinds of conversations, but most co-founder conflict is a misalignment on role responsibilities and an ambiguity around what people's roles and responsibilities are. So if you can have those kinds of conversations and just a real honest check-in around that, that starts to set up, I think about it like the foundations or the ground for you to build on. As human beings, we all have different needs and ways of seeing the world, and that's what makes us complementary. That's what makes us creative. It's an incredible strength, but that difference also breeds friction, which when it's taken personally or it's not discussed can lead to tension, breakdowns of trust, and that can be really hard. So it also comes down to good communication. And so once you've got those foundations in place of, broadly speaking, these are my expectations, and you're aligning on those expectations, when you notice moments of friction that you think are worth raising, you actively raise them and you talk about them. In one of my favorite books on communication, and it can feel a bit clunky when you start, and it can feel a bit coach speak, but it is so incredibly effective when it's done properly. It's a book by Marshall Rosenberg, Nonviolent Communication. And it's essentially, most conflict is based on people not being able to express needs. And so the very, very simple piece is expressing your own feelings and taking responsibility for them, and then expressing what your need is, so the other person at least has the opportunity to know, okay, this is what I could do differently. And then it comes down to, what can I and can't I commit to? But high level, that's how I think about it. Think about a broader conversation, which is foundation building, and then also investing time and energy in upgrading your communication so that you can become a better communicator and you can discuss that more artfully without exploding into conflict or being taken really personally. So but I'm really curious for you. Yeah.
Well, I think I would do from that, this sort of being very clear on your expectations is so important. And there's almost two groups there. There's sort of the roles and responsibility vision. Are we aligned on sort of the business expectation? So, and often things shift and we haven't come back to that to go, has anything changed? So kind of, we've got unspoken expectations, which are, as anyone's been in any relationship knows, are super dangerous things. And then you've got the sort of personal expectations around, this is how I expect you to behave, this is how I like to be treated. Like, and again, 50% of the time we might not have the business bit, but probably 80% of the time we don't have the personal bit clearly expressed. And then where I like that is like how you can actually train yourself to be more willing to have these conversations and how you have them.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's being very clear on expectations, being willing to discuss where they're not being met.
Yeah.
It's quite a big part of the solution on this.
100%. Because often if people don't do that, what happens is, I can't trust my co-founder, spirals into, my co-founder is incompetent, I'm with the wrong partner. And so then if they're not willing to discuss it openly and figure out if there's a way to both adapt and evolve, that's when you start to see back channeling or discussing it with other people that becomes inappropriate. And it means the conflict or the tension isn't being dealt with head on. It's being dealt with, what's the word? Not submissive.
Surreptitiously?
Yeah, like in a non-direct way, in an indirect way. And it makes you feel better because you vented, but it doesn't deal with the actual problem. Yeah,
I've seen that with, I was working with a pair of co-founders, and I was quite like, I was quite close with the VC, so I had a sort of a third objective source of info. Objective. It's always slightly subjective.
But yeah.
But a third source of information, another opinion. But it was interesting seeing the dynamic play out in terms of, we had a pair of two co-founders who on paper actually were a really good fit. One was very strong on the business side, one was very strong on the technical side. The business idea was good, but actually some of the personal behaviours of one of them, and actually particularly one of the other one at times, had led to this sense of distrust and had got to stage like, I think they're trying to exit me from the business. And actually that wasn't what was the case initially, but that actually became the case when they weren't able to work through that. And actually they weren't like, it was the personal, I can't trust you to turn up on time. I can't trust you to do what you say. I can't, like, it was actually much more around the personal side of it that led to something that on paper should really have worked.
Yeah, I see something similar a lot with co-founder dynamics. And The thing I always come back to is we can't control other people. Bottom line. The only thing that we can control is how we respond to other people's behavior, how we behave, and communication is in your control, and whether you set up the conditions that increase the likelihood of building a co-founder dynamic and relationship that works long term. If your co-founder isn't open to responding to that well, or isn't open to having those kinds of conversations, isn't open to adapting, isn't open to evolving, isn't open to changing, that's also really interesting data for you of if someone isn't open to feedback, isn't willing to discuss things, that's really, really hard to scale. And especially in a venture-backed model, the speed and the pace and the expectations of scale are huge. And so that's a significant risk to the business if the co-founders are misaligned or not on the same page. And so if that's how one person is responding, in some circumstances, it can be like, okay, this is a significant risk to the business, so we need to discuss it. If they're still not responding, it's tough. It's a really tough situation.
Well, I suppose like any relationship, isn't it? I mean,
Totally.
if you think about a founder relationship is probably going to last, if they're being successful, for 5
to 10 years. Yeah.
5-10 years.
Yeah.
That's 5 to 10 years under significant stress, with all sorts of curveballs. In many ways, much more stress than you see in your personal relationships. That requires a lot of work.
Totally.
To get that right. And often founders can be younger. Maybe haven't had as many sort of relationship experience outside of it. So you're going into it quite unprepared and with limited time and space to actually work on it, because you're so all in on the business.
Yeah, it's so true. And because it's such an intimate relationship as well, I think you can often see a lot of your own triggers that happen in romantic relationships happening in co-founder dynamics as well, which can be really confusing. And you get to see kind of people's best and worst attributes in this kind of wild cocktail of a crazy experience of scaling a company. And so when you get it right, it's such a gift, and it requires work, and it requires vulnerability, and it requires a lot of self-awareness and great communication. But trust, also the other thing to say is trust can be rebuilt. Yeah. I think often people talk about once trust is broken, it's gone. And I could not disagree more with that as a concept. I think the aloof concept of, oh, you've broken my trust, yes, in a moment in time, but that trust can be rebuilt. It does take time, and it takes consistency, and it takes great open communication and a willingness and a desire. I think that's also fundamental. If people aren't willing to change, then you're pushing a really, really heavy rock up a hill. But with the right conditions, 100% trust can be rebuilt, and relationships can be much stronger, actually, because you've had to have those honest conversations and really like dig deep as well and figure out what you want and what's important. So yeah.
I totally agree with that. I think actually the shock of it not working and falling apart can lead to behave like never waste a crisis in business. It's kind of like it can lead to like these both this painful realization in the sense of actually that's pain you don't want to go through again. Actually, change is needed.
Yes.
Because often we thought change is too hard, change is not necessary. There's a whole range of reasons to stay away from it. But if we're confronted by the consequence of not making that change, actually you can both be super committed to making it. But as you said earlier, it does take both of you to want to make it, not just on one side. Yes,
totally. And I think also for founders, they'll be really comfortable with a high degree of change in some context of their life. That will be also part of why being a founder is so energizing and exciting, because the rate of learning in certain contexts, but it's often in contexts they're more familiar with. So if you're more technical, you're delighted by novelty technically. It's like exciting problems to solve. And I remember one of my clients once, we were discussing this, and she once said that she loved solving problems in technically, hated solving problems with people. And I was like, what about if we started to look at people in the same way that you look at technical issues? And she's like, yeah, the phrase I often use with technical issues is, ooh, what a beautiful problem, whenever something comes up. And with people, it's just like, definitely so far from that. So I think there can be a reframing of starting to embrace and look at it differently that also really helps engage with it.
So I suppose the takeaway from today is get clarity. Just sort of be clear sort of what your expectations are on both sides, and be prepared to have the conversation. And if it's not working, you can get back to a stage where it might.
Yeah, Yeah. Or you power together, power apart. I often think about crisis. It's either it brings you closer together or it makes your differences more obvious, and therefore you find new vehicles for your growth. You find a different path that you help each other to create. So whatever the outcome is, I think also that's another thing that's important. It's like you don't have to be attached to a certain outcome, but you do have to be clear about being honest, open, and willing to have those hard conversations.
Amazing. Well, that's it for today. We'll see you guys again next week. As ever, if any questions, just reach out at hello@peer-effect.com, and happy scaling.